Hello, and how are you? Welcome to our session on Introduction to Female Genital Mutilation. My name is Winnie Barawa. If you're new, this is a channel that focuses on lessons, lectures, and expert interviews relating to healthcare. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and give us some feedback on areas you wish us to handle. So the session we are doing currently is a bit interesting because it is supported by organization that um, works to end the existence of female genital mutilation in our community, and this is the Girl Generation in collaboration with ACAF and the University of Nairobi. So these three organizations work together in community in Kenya, specifically to ensure that we prevent the continuation or the practice of female genital mutilation in the Kenyan community. You can follow their pages, their social media pages, their handles, and learn more on the works that they do. So in the session here, we are going to focus on female genital mutilation, the types, how it's the prevalence is, what are the barriers or what are the drivers of FGM, and the best approaches to employ for us to end this harmful practice in our communities. So let's introduce the definition of female genital mutilation, also known as FGM, or others prefer to call it FGC. So FGM comprises all procedures involving partial or total removal of the external female genitalia or other injuries to the female genital organs for cultural or non-medical reasons. And this basically is defined as any kind of mutilation or any kind of changes made to the female genital mutilation, to the female genital organs, specifically the external ones, without any non-medical reasons. So in this case, mostly it's done for cultural reasons. So let's review the structures of the female genitalia and the areas that get affected most of the time. So in the female genitalias, we have the external areas, which is normally covered by the hairs. So we talk about the hair areas here, or the pubic hair. And then out of around it, we have the external bumps, that is the majoras, what we call the labia majoras. And then we have the inner lips. So for the inner lips is what we call the labia minoris. And then we have the indications of the clitoris, which is covered a little bit by a flap that we call the clitoral hood or the prepuce. So with the prepuce, this is what hides the clitoris a little bit. Then we move downwards. Here at the central part, we get to access the urethral opening, and below it is the interotus or the vaginal openings. And then we go to access the anal opening, and in between the anus and the vagina, we have the perineum or the perineal area. So this is a summarized way of the external genitalia of the female, and these areas is where mostly the mutilation happen or the changes tends to be incorporated or implemented on. So based on the external structures which have different functions, starting with the vagina. So the vaginal opening allows the escape of the menstrual flow. It's also the area for the initiation of the sexual intercourse, and it's going to be exit channel for the delivery of the baby. But then we have the urethral orifice or the urethral opening. This is specifically to allow emptying of the bladder or flow of the urine from the bladder to the environment. And then the clitoris, this is an area which is highly sensitive. It's supplied with nerves, almost 8,000 nerves, which help the woman to achieve sexual satisfaction or sexual orgasms and arousals. And the other part is the perineum. This is an area which has muscles, or it's covered with skeletal muscles, and the agenda is to support the pelvic organs and separates the vagina place from the anus. And then the labia minus or the labia minoris, this protects the structures and the orifices. These have lips to just protect the structures and the orifice, and then the majoras or the labia majus, they protect the inner structures also and the orifice. Then we have the fauciets. So the fauciets, this forms the base of the vaginal opening, basically. And then we have the internal structures of the female genitalia. So we got in as we go in, we got the cervix, we got the vaginals first, then we go all the way to the cervix, and then we can start accessing the uterus. Okay, so with the ability to understand the external genitalia, this brings us to the different types of the FGM, of the different types of the cuts. So the WHO classifies female genital mutilation into 4 types, and this is based on how the extent of the excision has happened or the extent of the mutilation has happened. So we have type 1 all the way to type 4, and in type 1 we also call it the clitoridectomy, which is usually the mildest form. And research shows that in Kenya this happens like in communities like Kisi's, which are located in the western part of the country. Then we have type 2, which is excision. In type 2, this happens in the communities along the Rift Valleys and in the central region like Kikuyus and the Kipsigis. And type 4 is called infibulation, very severe, happens around communities like the Nilotes and also the Kushites like the Somalis and inclusion of the West Pokots. Type 4 caters for what we call others. These are major types of, these are not really like major types of mutilation, but this includes any mutilation that is not covered in the type 1 all the way to type 3. So we'll discuss these types one by one so that we can be able to understand how they all happen. So the type 1 FGM is what we call the clitoridectomy, or which will also define as partial or total removal of the clitoris. So a clitoris is a small, sensitive, and erectile part of the female genitalia. So most of the time, the clitoris is the one that gets affected in this type. And what we are being told is some communities, they can remove only the prepuce, the small fold of the skin that covers the clitoris. However, most of the time we are told they remove mostly that clitoris part. So in review of our anatomy, the clitoris is the part that is sensitive and has many nerves to just stimulate the orgasms and stimulates the sexual arousal for the women. So the prepuce is the skin that covers our clitoris. So we are being told in some communities they can actually remove only the prepuce. But in the clitoridectomy or in the type 1 FGM, the clitoris is actually the area that gets affected the most. Then we have the type 2 FGM, what we also call excision. So excision is defined as partial or total removal of the clitoris, and this includes the labia minoras with or without excision of the majoras. So the labia, we also call them the lips, and these are known for surrounding the vagina. So after the hairy parts, we got to deal with the lips. We have the majoras and the minoras. So in the excision part, there is removal of the clitoris and partly removing the minoras. However, the majoras may not be removed. So because this is our could be total removal of the minoras or partial removal of the minoras. So what happened is we deal with the clitoris, like remove the clitoris, and then the next part is the cutter will go and remove the minoras. However, we don't interfere the majoras. So that's what the excision works. The key focus of the excision is to remove the minoras and the clitoris. However, there is not much involvement with the majoras. Then we have the type 3 female genital mutilation. This is known as infibulation. It is one of the most severe form of female genital mutilation because it ends up by narrowing the vaginal opening by creating a seal. So what the seal happens, or what a seal is done, is that the seal is formed by cutting and repositioning of the inner and the outer labias with or without removal of the clitoris. So in this type of FGM is whereby we are able to either remove the clitoris, remove the minoras, and then we seal the lips, or we seal the majora. So we are able to just be able to suture these areas and leave a small opening for sexual purposes, or just to allow the exit of the urine and exit of the menstrual flow. So this is how the final outlook looks like after the procedure has been done and successfully completed. So there's a removal of this of these organs, or this of this area, specifically of the lips majorly, and then there is suturing and closure of these lips. So we just leave a small part. And the last bit is what we call the type 4. A type 4 is defined as any other manipulation to the female external genitalia for non-medical reason, and this refers to any other manipulation that is not covered in type 1 and type 4, type 1, type 2, and type 3. So in this, it can happen in different methods. It could be either procedures like pulling of the labia, could include procedures like tattooing of the lips, piercing, and all that. So as you can see here is a demonstration of labia stretching that has taken place. And this is a procedure that is done after different period of time. The labia end up getting stretched. And this is performed in different countries. Like in Africa, it's known as in the sub-Saharan countries. This is a common procedure. Also in East African countries, there are communities that practice labia pulling, labia stretching, and this is the final outlook that we end up with. So in this, we are having a summary of how the different procedures take place and the outlook of the lips after the procedure has taken place. So we mentioned type 1, where there is an aspect where we deal only with the clitoris and the prepuce. So in the type 1, which is clitoridectomy, there's removal of the clitoris and removal of the prepuce. So the biggest focus here is the clitoris. However, in type 2, where we talk about incision or excision, this is where there's removal of the clitoris, there's removal of the prepuce, and there's also a focus of removal of the minoras. So the minoras ends up being removed in this particular procedure. And then we have type 3, which is now about infibulation. So in the infibulation level, here we are simply cutting the minoras, the clitoris, or in some parts they are still maintained, but in this we are going to suture and close the lips so that we leave a small opening for just release of the urine and other fluids from the vaginal areas. But then there could be other severe stages where we can basically remove and then we suture it and maintain the opening to be as small as possible. And don't forget with type 4, we have now the class where we talk about the others. So in the others could be labia stretching, labia pierces, the labia tattooing, and any other methods that can be involved here. So that summarizes the types of female genital mutilation and the definition. And don't forget to keep it here because this is a series. You're going to be introducing all this content and we'll be checking more on the drivers, what makes people actually believe in FGM, what are the effects, both long-term and short-term, and then what interventions can we introduce to end FGM. So thank you so much for staying with me all the way to the end. Don't forget to leave a comment, share, and also subscribe and be part of our community. You can also join the membership. We have introduced different levels that you can join. So thank you so much and see you in our next lessons. Bye bye.